You might hear about God's grace, but have you ever experienced it for yourself? God is always gracing us in life, but we don't always recognize it. Today, I am going to share with you the first time I actually recognized God's grace in my life and what it actually looked like. So stay tuned, sis. Hey, sis. Welcome to Goodbye Heartbreak, Hello Healing. Are you hurt and confused after a recent breakup? Are you having thoughts like, I can't believe I'm here again. Why wasn't I enough for him? Or I'm never going to get married? Do you find yourself Googling how to get past the breakup or how to heal my broken heart? Do you start your morning feeling like you can finally breathe again, only to fall apart when you see a picture of your ex on social media? Hey sis, I'm Candace. I too was a single Christian woman who was heartbroken but still desired marriage. I too had numerous failed relationships and wished the right man would come along. I wanted closure from past relationships, healing for my heart, and I wanted to feel joy in my life again. But the truth is, I had no idea where to start or how to make any of this happen. Until I found the secret, partnering with God to heal from heartbreak. In this podcast, you will find tips for moving on after breakups, growing your relationship with God, and preparing for future relationships so that you will heal your heart and be ready to move forward into the life you desire. So turn off those heartbreak songs and turn me up in those earbuds. It's time to heal, sis. Hey sis, and welcome to Goodbye Heartbreak, Hello Healing. If you are new here, I just want to say I am so happy that you have landed on this podcast in the most difficult season of your life. I know this season is hard, but I'm glad that you have found a podcast with wisdom and nuggets and encouragement to help you on your heart healing journey. So welcome, welcome, welcome. So today I have an announcement. I told y'all about it last week, but I am reiterating today is our 1-year book anniversary. That's right. Goodbye Heartbreak, Hello Purpose, a 365-day devotional has now been in this world for 1 full year. Wow. Aren't we like going full circle, right? A 365-day devotional here for 365 days. Y'all, this book has blessed so many women's lives. I always get amazing feedback. And so we are having an anniversary flash sale on today. And actually for a couple of days, you can get 30% off of the book. Just go to CandiceABaddies.com/shop and use the discount code ANN30, that's ANN30, okay? Use that code at checkout, get 30% off of the book, and that is paperback or digital copy, all right, sis? So go and enjoy these perks. I know you're going to love the book. So today we are talking about God's grace. So I know for myself, I often heard people refer to this particular scripture whenever we're talking about grace, and it's from 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 9. But they would simply say, God's grace is sufficient. His grace is sufficient. They would just say that part of it without, really saying the whole thing. And I'll be quite honest with you, sis, for years, I never knew what that actually meant. Like, I never even really knew what it meant to have God's grace. I would hear about it, but I did not know for myself. I didn't have many teachings on it growing up, and I grew up in the church. So I really had no idea what God's grace even looked like, okay? But I decided to read the Bible for myself and to read this particular scripture. And so for the sake of time, I'll only read verses 8 and 9 because this is a passage of several scriptures, but Paul is talking here, and he's talking to the church of Corinth, which is a young Christian church. And he said in verse 8, starting at verse 8, he says, 3 times I pleaded with the Lord to take it away from me. But he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you. My power is made perfect in weakness. So I love this scripture now that I have more of an understanding what God's grace is actually. And so Paul, before this, he was saying that he had a thorn in his side. If you ever heard people talk about the thorn in the side, that's Paul, a reference from him in the Bible. And he talked about this thorn he had in his side. And he he felt like it was a messenger from Satan, like sent to torment him. It was something that he really did not want to have, did not want to deal with. Very similar to heartbreak, right? This like something that he really, and it doesn't say what this something is, but he talks about it as if it is just like, oh my God, painful, undesirable, something that he doesn't want to be bothered with. And so God gave me more revelation over time on this scripture because I experienced such things in my life. So my pastor really helped me understand grace a little bit more in general by giving me two definitions. He said, one, that grace is God's unmerited favor, like God giving us things that we don't deserve. And also grace is God's power to do what we can't do in our own strength. So I'm paraphrasing, but for the most part, that is what the definitions that he gave. And so I remember them so well because it's not like I'm reading from something as I talk about this, as I recall it, but I remember these definitions because I'm like, okay, I want God's unmerited favor. I want, if I want the things I don't necessarily deserve to have, but, God favors me enough. I want God's power to do the things that I can't do in my own strength. And so it's like, as I lived my life, as I went on this healing journey, right? As I continue to walk, I was able to see God's grace show up in both of those ways. Okay, but today I want to tell you about 6 ways I experienced God's grace in the midst of my heartbreak, right? And this is when I finally got to see God's grace for myself, when I actually got to know what it is and learn from experience, okay? So let me tell you what these 6 things are. 1, he gave me space to grieve, okay? So God graced me with space to actually grieve. I could not make space on my own. Okay. It was something I wasn't able to do on my own. I didn't know how to, I didn't know I needed the room to grieve during that season, but I needed space, right? So he allowed me to have space to grieve. And by space, I mean like opening up my schedule. He, even time at work, I was less busy at work. So when I needed time to actually go walk and talk to him and pray, and when I needed time to cry and get away, like I had time to do that. God gave me space to grieve. 2, God gave me strength to endure the pain. So I'm preaching to the choir right now when I say that heartbreak is an unimaginable pain. Okay. And you feel so many emotions through this time. And so it's like being able to endure that. I felt like it was physically, mentally, and emotionally draining, painful, and all of the things. And it was like, I felt like I could not have endured that amount of pain on my own, but the grace of God allowed me to. And then 3, he gave me wisdom about my situation. So I felt like God didn't have to do that. He did not have to actually tell me why he was allowing this to happen to me. Yet he did. He gave me his favor in that way. And I feel like that's not always something that people get. And so I felt really blessed and favored to be able to know God was like, okay, this is why I needed to do this. This is why I needed to separate you from that relationship, from that person. This is why you need a season of no dating, no men, nothing. And it was just like God started revealing things to me about myself, and I was like, wow, like it was amazing. 4, he protected me from the dangers I could not see. Again, it was his favor. He could have very well let me continue on the way that I was going. But there were things that were happening, like that whenever my ex and I broke up, there were things that he was going through that I had no idea that he was dealing with. And it was much better for him to deal with them on his own instead of in a relationship with me, because then I would have gotten caught up in that. He would have took some of the things that he was dealing with out on me. And so it was so good for me to not be a part of his journey that he was walking through at that time. I didn't know and I couldn't see that because he didn't share those things with me. But later, God was able to show me, like, I was protecting you. And then during that time also, I saw so many people who were struggling in their marriages and not happy. And I felt like God was also showing me, like, I am protecting you from this as well. Like, this could be you. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, thank you so much. So I became appreciative of God and his grace for protecting me from what I could not see. Number 5, God gave me a promise in my loneliness. Again, it was God's unmerited favor. He did not have to do it. I didn't deserve the promise. I did not deserve a promise, yet he came to me and he shared with me something that he promised me. And it reminds me all the time. In fact, he used the scripture from Genesis with Sarah, and I don't have it on hand right now because it's just coming to me. But when he told Abraham that he and Sarah would have a son, Sarah laughed. And, it was like, the angel was like, why did you laugh? Or God was like, why did you laugh? And she tried to deny. She's like, no, I didn't laugh, but even in his goodness, even though she was doubting that, because, everything that she could see would make her doubt it, God said, you know what? Next year, this time, you're going to have a son. And God told me, next year, this time, you're going to be a wife. And he gave me that promise in times of loneliness, when I was alone and when I felt like I wasn't sure what my future held, and I was, fearful about what was going to happen and whether or not I would actually have the things that I desired. And I felt like, I was of a certain age, and by that age, I thought I would be married. I thought I would have kids. I thought everything I wanted would have already transpired. And it seemed instead everything was falling apart. But God came in during that time, gave me the promise. And yes, the promise did come to pass. He's so good like that. And so it was, again, God's grace, his unmerited favor in that season, in the midst of my heartbreak. And number 6, God gave me the power to grow through my situation. So not everyone grows in times of trouble, in times of sorrow, in times of pain. Sometimes people get stuck there, okay? And I really believe that, we go through this. You've been hearing me talk about, the grieving process a lot lately, but it's because if we don't grieve, if we get stuck in that process, in the stages of grief in the beginning and never actually make it all the way through, then we cannot grow through what we're going through. And that's all the trials and tests have come to do. The enemy meant for it to take you out. But God's plan is for us to grow and develop through the tests and trials of life. Jesus said, in this world, we will have trouble. He promised that. He's like, there's no getting around it. In this world, we will have trouble, but take heart because I have overcome the world, which means you can too, by the grace of God. So this heartache that you're experiencing right now, it doesn't have to be the thing that keeps you bound. It doesn't have to be the thing that makes you feel like, oh my God, I'm never going to have the life that I desire. It doesn't have to be the thing to keep you away from God's purpose and his goodness. No, he can give you grace, the power to do what you can't do in your own strength. And that is to heal, move on, and grow through this situation, grow through this heartbreak. And that is what he did for me. He allowed that season to be so fruitful for me. He planted so many seeds that are still springing up in my life, still producing fruit in my life. The word that I know now is because of the seeds that were planted during that season. I grew tremendously spiritually in that season, and growing spiritually affects every other area of your life. And so because of that, I now see good fruit in every area of my life because I grew in my spirit man through that situation. I want to see the same thing for you, sis. I want to see you grow through this difficult season. All right. So let's recap the 6 ways I experienced God's grace. And look, I want to see all 6 of these things for you too, because you can use this. You can experience this. And, I wasn't supposed to talk about the course today, but here we go. You can get through these stages of grief and come out on the other side experiencing God's grace as you go through each stage, as you develop through each stage, you can see God's grace helping you in each stage. Just putting that out there, okay? Grieving the Living. If you want to check it out, you can always email me with questions at contact@candiceabaddies.com. All right, so 1, recap. He gave me space to grieve. 2, he gave me strength to endure the pain. 3, he gave me wisdom about my situation. 4, he protected me from dangers I could not see. 5, he gave me a promise in my loneliness. And 6, he gave me the power to grow through my situation. Okay, sis, I want to see you healed, whole, and happy. And I know you want it to happen right now, but it is a process. And so accept God's free gift of grace that he is offering to you and allow him to help you. You cannot do this on your own. And that is when we fail. That is when we don't see the things that we want to see. When we try to control the situation and we try to do everything on our own, in our own strength. Get the help that you need. And allow God to be on this journey with you. Partner with him on this healing journey, and you will see him show up in different areas. You will see him show up little by little. You'll see him show up and give you grace. And you'll be like, wow, that, like, you'll be like me. I was just like, wow, every single time. Wow, look at that. Wow, look at that. All of these 6 things that I named didn't come all at one time. Okay. This was over the course of like a year or so that I experienced God's grace in these different ways. And so you can too. Be on the lookout. Okay. And like I said, this topic is something that I share in my book, Goodbye Heartbreak, Hello Purpose, a 365-day devotional. So if you want to hear more about God's grace, getting through the hurt and becoming a person that you want to be, grab a copy of my book now while it's on sale. So we celebrate our 1-year anniversary. Head to my website, CandiceABaddies.com/shop. You will get 30% off by using the code ANN30, that's ANN30 at checkout. And I also have a link that in the show notes, and this information, all of this is in the show notes, the coupon code and everything, okay? So look, so many women have been blessed by this book already, all right? I always get positive feedback, and I know it would be such a blessing to you too as you take your healing journey one day at a time, okay? Last week we talked about, healing one day at a time, and this book, this devotional is one way to help you do that. And I always encourage women to ask themselves 2 questions, whenever we're talking about healing. 1, what do I want my life to look like 1 year from now? Okay, so ask yourself that question and be honest. What do you want your life to look like in 1 year? And then 2, what am I going to do today to get there? All right, so healing happens one day at a time. All you have is this day. So think about it. Don't think about everything that you're ever going to do to heal your heart over, a year. Think about, what am I going to do today? God has given me this day my daily bread. So today, the day that I have in my hand that I can physically see right now, what am I going to do today that's going to get me there? And if you need this book to help you, to give you a scripture every day, to give you a devotion of things that I've experienced that can help you, and a declaration at the end, then get this book. All right, sis. I love you so much, and I will talk to you again really soon. Come over to the Facebook group and hang out with us. We'd love to have you. And again, I'll talk to you soon. Bye. Hey sis, listen, if you've been blessed, changed, or inspired by this podcast in any way, please subscribe to the podcast and leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. This is the #1 way that you can thank me and show support for the show. Also, if this podcast blessed you, don't keep it to yourself. Do a quick share and bless someone else. Please know I am so grateful for each and every one of you, and I would love to hear from you. Come connect with me and other like-minded individuals in my Facebook group called Christian Women Overcoming Heartbreak and Finding Purpose. I can't wait to meet you back here really soon. Until then, remember to love the life you have while you're making it better. Love you, sis.